Hello everyone, this is Gilgamesh. Let's finish off this chapter of Isaiah, chapter 25, with this third section that begins halfway through verse 10 and goes to the end of the chapter. It's a very small section, but there's a definite break in tone and style from the rest of the chapter, and so it seems that this is its own standalone item, even though it's in our verse numbering and division system seems to be lumped in with what comes before. Very notably in this, we've now shifted from a vision of a grand fate for all of mankind to very specifically the fate of Moab, who was a traditional enemy of Israel. And Moab is often depicted as having been somewhat treacherous in their behavior during the time that the Mesopotamian forces were threatening the kingdom of Israel in general. And so we have, beginning halfway through verse 10 here, this depiction, and Moab shall be trampled down beneath him, as a straw heap is trampled down into the water of a cesspool. So the idea here is that straw, tevin, was soaked with animal excrement, and that this soggy mixture would be trampled so that the straw would soak up the animal excrement and it could be used then for fertilization. This was a deliberately repellent and humiliating image to depict the fate of Israel's traditional enemy, Moab. And so Isaiah leans into this imagery here, saying, and he will spread out his hands in the midst of it as a swimmer spreads his hands out to swim. Well, first I should point out that swimming wasn't a really popular thing in the hills of Judea. That would be something that would be a little bit foreign for places that have more water. The hill country of Judea doesn't have a lot of swimming holes. But the imagery here of this person in the cesspool of animal dung here, trying to swim and get their way out of it while being trampled down and buried in the filth, it's quite explicit. And his pompous pride will sink down, together with the churning of his hands. Obviously, we are talking about the reason why he's being put into the cesspool is because of his pride, which needs to be humiliated. And we have here the idea of the churning of his hands. The word churning is the Hebrew word orbot, and we don't really know what it means. It seems to be associated with his hands or his arms, but this word occurs nowhere else. And the other cognates that we have in other Semitic languages are not terribly convincing. This is an instance where we just have to kind of surmise from context what the meaning would be. And since you're drowning, the churning of your hands seems like as good a guess as any. So the idea here is him trying to stay afloat, but desperately churning up things with his hands there as he does so. Then we bring it down to a very real and concrete symbolism in the final verse here. And the high fortifications of your walls he will throw down, make sink, cast to the ground, to dust. It's a very interesting arrangement in the Hebrew here. We're talking about the fortifications, defensive fortifications of city walls. They're going to be thrown down, sunken into this mire, we would assume, and cast. We have three verbs here with thrown down, make, sink, and cast that are all right next to each other without any conjunction between them. And then they're followed by two prepositional phrases, to the ground, to dust. It's clearly used for stylistic and effect purposes, that he is saying that these defensive positions in Moab are going to be destroyed. And indeed, Moab does seem to suffer a pretty terrible fate at the hands of the Assyrians and the Babylonians. We don't know all the details of what happens there with them, but the idea is that their power and their defense is not going to help them. They are going to be exposed. And so this is just a simple few verses here talking about the fate of Moab in kind of a gross way, that they're going to be thrown into the cesspit or the dung heap here and trodden down as though they were straw and then spread out to be used as manure. I think the meaning's pretty clear on this. There's not a whole lot of ambiguity as to what we're saying. But anyway, there it is. And if you find this interesting, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.